All right. One of the questions I often get asked is, why did I decide to go into the CMC program, or should somebody go into the CMC program, or what are some of the downsides to the program? Um, I will tell you that I chose to go into the Command Master Chief program for several reasons. The first reason was when I was initiated into the Chief's Mess in 2006. I had not planned on becoming a chief that year. I wasn't even up for chief when I took the test. I took the test for LDO purposes only. That means limited duty officer, right? I was not up for chief. I had only been a first class petty officer that January for 1 year. Well, maybe a year and like 3-4 months. Not a lot of time. Okay. But I was the ranked number 1 first class that year. I was the Sailor of the Year that year, but that didn't mean anything to me. I didn't know what that meant. I just thought it was cool. I had no visibility of what those could do for my career. So when I applied to take the LDO exam, or the Chief's test for LDO purposes only, I just did that because that was what my LDO officer had recommended that I do, and I was just trying to promote. I remember my CMC came up to me and he said, "Hey, Wise, why don't you want to be a chief?" And I said, "Well, Master Chief, there's nothing against the Chief's Mess. I'm not up for chief. So I'll take it for LDO this year. And if I don't make LDO this year, then I'll apply for chief next year when I'm up for it." And he comes back a couple of weeks later and he gives me the paper that says, "Congratulations, you're now Chief Petty Officer Board eligible." Did not know there was a time and rate waiver, which, God, if I had never taken that test for LDO purposes on my own, guess who wouldn't have made chief that year? This guy, right? Or LDO, right? But during that, so I make chief, the results come out, and I go through initiation. And truth be told, I had no idea there was even an initiation into chief. I had seen these guys running around during my career, but I had never really paid attention to it. I remember the thing that was probably the most noticeable for me was that we would try to steal the boxes of the chief selectees, right? Other than that, I didn't really have this deep need to know what they were doing behind closed doors. But I go through Chief's initiation, and I'll have to make a video about that someday. That was an interesting experience, right? But I get through initiation, and as I'm going through the initiation process, Joe Campa is the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy at the time, and I'm really buying into this idea that it's not about the money, which, truth be told, when I was thinking about going LDO, it was 100% about the money, and it was about a promotion, right? Those were the two main things. I wasn't in love with being an engineer. I was good at being an engineer. Wasn't in love with being a damage controlman, but I was good at damage control, right? But what I discovered was, man, I was really in love with helping people. And so as I was going through this Chief's initiation, and they were teaching me these fundamental concepts that becoming a Chief Petty Officer was about more than just being a good D seaman or being a good engineer. It was more about being a good sailor that can help everybody, and understanding that I played a role in this organization. And coming from my background as a kid that moved around a lot before I joined the military, joined street gangs at a young age. Someday I'll tell you guys some of those stories, but was looking to always be accepted. Becoming a part of this Chief's Mess was a really powerful thing for me. And when I made chief on board the USS Ogden, and then we decommissioned the Ogden. But my next Chief's Mess was a Float Training Group San Diego. That mess was freaking phenomenal. Oh my God. That was the mess that really had me all the way baptized into the theology of the United States Navy Chief Petty Officers. And the Chief's Mess, we aligned, at least my generation of chief, aligned perfectly with technology. I remember we going from having it was a big deal when you had a cell phone with a stylus and a QWERTY board, right? And it was during those years of 2007, 2008, 2009 that technology just boomed. and the connection for the Worldwide Chiefs Mess just blew. The synergy just blew, and you started seeing all of the emblematics start flying, and the CPO Pride Day. I remember when that first started. ATG was a big part of that, and the CPO Selectee cadence calling competition, and I just got the chance to be in this Chiefs Mess of like 300 freaking motivators. And it was during that period I read a book. I forget the name of the book off the top of my head, but the book said, while we needed strong chief petty officers to go into the wardroom to become warrant officers and LDOs, that we needed our best and our brightest to promote and go into the Command Master Chief program and to become the people that retain the level of leadership in the mess. And that just spoke to me. Like, I felt like, oh my God, whoever wrote that chapter was meaning that for a person like me. Because the money never been my real priority. It's never been my real motivation. I'm going to get money regardless. I'm going to figure out ways to take care of the financials. That's too easy, right? I need to have my cup full. I need to have things that inspire me and excite me. And what that is for me, for Gary Wise, is to help people that are going through the same journey that I went through, right? A teenager that's going through a lot of chaos and not quite sure if they're going to make it out unscathed or untouched. I care about that person because I was that person. I was that kid that was homeless, sleeping in freaking dumpsters and trying to figure it out. I was that dummy that left home at a young age and was too proud to go back to mom and dad's house and was trying to make it out there on my own. I was that kid hanging out with people way older than me, doing things I had no business doing that were actually dangerous, and putting myself in positions that I could get freaking hurt, right? I could go to jail. Like, I've had friends been locked up as long as I've been in the military or after even. It's a truth. It is what it is, right? So I connect with those young people, or with young people that have unfortunately been in positions that made them feel less than, right? I've been unfortunately abused. I've been unfortunately put into positions where life was harder than it had to be. And so I have a connection for those people. But then I also have a connection for once people join the military or they start their careers and then they don't know if they're going to be able to see it all the way through. Because again, that was me too. I joined the military, thank God, able to make it out alive. And then I get there and all of a sudden I don't want to be there. I could give a damn. I'm acting like I don't care. I remember the second class petty officer that really broke me down is because he was messing with me one day so bad in the pit that I thought I was going to have to fight the guy. And I truthfully, I was thinking like, I'm going to have to hurt this guy bad, because you don't just pick on me. I'm not someone you just pick on. I'm not a toy for you to play with. And I had this reputation on this ship in 1997 that I thought mattered, right? And that reputation was I was kind of supposed to be a tough guy, right? And I remember he's messing with me, and he's really busting my chops. And I finally, and I cared what this guy thought about me. Like, he was a second class petty officer. He had a wife. He had kids. He dressed nice. He was always looking sharp. And I secretly I wanted the guy to freaking like me. And so the fact that he was picking on me made me feel even more conflicted and more confused. So finally, I got to the point where I was so angry that I'm like, I'm going to have to do something drastic to get the point across to this person that you're not just going to treat me like this. And I use my words, right? I use my words. I'm very proud of myself looking back, because 20-year-old me was about to lose it. And I basically said, hey, man, why are you messing with me? Why are you picking on me? What did I ever do to you? And he said, it's because you've been on this ship now for long enough. You should be qualified some watch stations, and you're not. And it's because I see you and all your little buddies on the ship acting like you guys are all back home with your cool little handshakes and your cool little lingo, and you're trying to act like you're a bunch of freaking tough guys, and you have no rank, you have no qualifications, and you're not going anywhere in life. You don't even know why you're here. And I've decided that I've had enough of this and you work for me. And so I'm going to get through to you by reminding you every day how much of a punk I think you are. And man, oh my God, I was just like jaw dropped, just, God, I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. I needed that to come from somebody who I valued and I appreciated. And he was a second class petty officer. Now, he was a dad, right? He was a husband. He was a lot of things. And he was probably one of the first mentors in my life that really changed my life. And I remember I go back out into the main space. I'm working in the engine room at the time. I'm aboard the USS Bellawood in Sasebo, Vegas, Japan. And I go out to the main space, and it's probably a smooth 102 degrees out there. Got hearing protection, and it's hot. And I'm thinking about these things that he just said to me. And I'm not thinking anymore about trying to be violent or aggressive. No. I'm actually like, I'm reminded of all the reasons I joined the military. I'm reminded of all the things that I thought I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to become a dad. I wanted to become a husband. I wanted to be a person my parents could be proud of and be a law-abiding citizen and learn how to be a part of things that were for good, not just a part of things that were unfortunately not good, right? And here he was telling me that the things I was doing wrong. And so I'd go back in there every hour to see him, to have him sign my readings, because I was a UI, but I had to take readings every hour just to practice to get my quals done. And I remember I walked in there, and he took my little clipboard, and he's, ST3, give me your clipboard. He used to call me ST3, which is the name of the kid off that movie Sinbad. If you ever watched that movie Sinbad, it's the name of that white kid in Sinbad that thinks he's black, right? That's what he called. He used to, I'm telling you, he was messing with me. He was really trying to get through to me. And he takes my readings. He's like, let me get these things wise. And he's looking at it, and he's just signs it up and gives it back to me, and he's like, go clean the head. And that's where he'd been making me clean the head every hour. And I said, whoa, before I gotta clean the head, could you explain to me, or could you tell me why the boiler water level matters, right? Could you explain to me why the force draft blowers matter, and why I always have to go up on the 30-foot level and monitor the DFT water level of the boiler water level? What's that? How does that all correlate? I didn't say it that fluidly. I'm sure I said it much more gruff and much more immaturely, but I asked the question. It was about, because I was always getting sent to the 30-foot level of the main space to watch the DFT, our deaerating feed tank. And there would be a makeup and a dump, and I'd have to control it manually because we were having problems with our pneumatics, right? I didn't know all that then. I was just doing what I was told. But it'd be so hot up there that I would just leave a puddle of sweat everywhere. Or, I mean, it was tough. It was really bad. And he looks at me and says, you know what? He gives me a book. And this book is the Boiler Tech Manual. Right? He says, go read the book. And I go out in the upper level, and I read the first chapter. And man, talk about a life change, y'all. I not only could understand the book, I not only could find all the parts of the boiler that the book was talking about, but it all was coming together. And a year later, of course, I was a very qualified young sailor in the United States Navy in the engineering department. But that was the beginning. So when I look at all these young people that are going through life, that graduate high school, and they don't have to join the military, but they're just not sure what they want to do, or they lose sight of what they're going to do next, I have a connection for that. I believe I have something to offer those people, right? So that's another reason why I wanted to go Command Master Chief, because I didn't always want to be wrapped around the axle on dealing with the maintenance and the drills and the training. Instead, I wanted to be able to spend more time focusing on the people. And my Chiefs was my favorite. My Chiefs mess was my favorite because I believed if I took care of my Chiefs and made sure that they knew that I was there for them, that they would then in turn take better care of their sailors, which is a true statement. And I will tell you, there was very few CMCs in my career that I felt like would do a good job taking care of the chiefs. They would typically be telling us how much we weren't doing a good job, and they would be going around us to the sailors. Now, did sailors get to me around their chiefs? Yes, for sure, 100%, because I encouraged an open door policy. I encourage conversations on the deck plates, but I would often ask the sailors, does your chief know you're here? Does your chief know what your problems are? And is your chief involved or not? And I would give the chief the benefit of the doubt before I would get frustrated with them, because I would understand they were doing all of their technical work, all of their watchstanding work, plus dealing with all of the sailors. And typically, who are the sailors that would come to me? The ones that really have high level problems, or the ones that are unfortunately being a distraction for the people, right? And so but then I would get involved. I'd be thankful for those opportunities to get involved, because that's my role, right? My role is to help offset the chief, to make sure that we're all taking care of each other and doing good things. Another reason why I went to the Command Master Chief program was I didn't want to always be on aircraft carriers, right? As a damage control master chief, which I was, I never wanted to be a command senior chief. I'm not really a fan of the command senior chief program. The Navy is a little bit different than the other branches. I will tell you that I don't think we do a good job taking care of our command senior chiefs. When you're making them be freaking 3MCs and collateral duty, a bunch of other things, but then putting the level of responsibility on them of a command senior enlisted leader, it just shows me you don't truly understand what that person's bringing to the table, right? Do they do that to first sergeants? No, they don't. They don't. Let's just be honest, right? So I wanted to always be a command master chief. That's what I wanted to be, a command master chief. And after doing my carrier tour and making DC master chief, I went through a couple of years, about 2 years, where I really had to think about it. Like, hey man, I'm a master chief now. Do I really want to get pulled into that craziness? And the answer was yes. I definitely wanted some. Otherwise, I would have got out of the Navy at 20 years, right? I was burnt out. I was not a fan of the Navy's maintenance program. Still not. If you want to know anywhere in the United States Navy that I would recommend Doge starts, look at the Navy, Surface Navy's 3M program. It is a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. I'll tell you that right now. From a person who did a lot of maintenance, did a lot of repairs of equipment, did a lot of freaking inspections, I was a decent, mess. Super mess. That's one of the main reasons why sailors don't get sleep. Trying to freaking do all the administrative crap for maintaining gear when INSERV doesn't ask for any of that. That's all. INSERV is the Board of Inspection and Survey that assesses our ships every 5 years, certified by Congress, blah, 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 right? My favorite inspection is INSERV, by the way. They're my favorite. They're my favorite. All the subsidiary inspections that work up to that suck. INSERV, the best. Okay. The other reason why I wanted to become a command master chief was because I wanted to be in the room with the decision makers, not just advocating for the sailors and for the deck plates and for the chief's mess that it's my job to represent, but also to give the commanding officer and the executive officer and anybody else in the room a piece of my freaking mind when it comes to my years of experience. Because, I'd done a lot, I'd seen a lot, and I'd earned the right to be in that room, and I wanted to be in that room, and there were just rooms that I couldn't be in certain positions. Now as a DC man, if I could have been a top snipe, maybe. I really did love engineering. I really enjoyed being in the main space. I really enjoyed fixing stuff and working on stuff, but I'm not going to say I hated being a CMC either and not having to do any of those things. That was kind of nice. Not going to lie. Now, what are some of the reasons why I would not recommend somebody go to the CMC program? Man. Because, I was a CMC from 2018 until I retired in 2022. Even though I was a senior enlisted leader in SWAS, Norfolk, before I went to the CMC program, it's not the same. I don't really count that. Being a collateral duty senior enlisted leader is not the same thing as being a command master chief straight up. Because once we give up our rate, there's no takebacks, right? You're either getting out or you continue to do what the Navy wants you to do. The first thing for me is way too many people that were in the Command Master Chief program seem to have opinions on where I should be going and what I should be doing. And when I was younger, man, I thought that it mattered. I thought to become a person in a certain position was going to really just mean so much validation. It was going to mean that I was really doing the right things. What I now know is, number one, unfortunately, you kind of get the people that just choose to stay there as long as possible and play some inside trader game. You see it. You'll see it. I mean, I've watched people bounce. It's not healthy. I'll just leave that there, right? You don't always get the best for the job. That's one. Two, I was very fortunate to have really good commanding officers, but I've had one in particular that was tough, right? 1.5, right? And as a command master chief, if you get a commanding officer that you do not personally coalesce with, which I don't, look, I looked at it as my job was to serve that person. So I would meet that person wherever they were going to be and do my very level best for them. But when you're a liar, right, then I can't deal with it. When you are a person who's not authentic, or you're not going to be shooting straight with me, or if you're going to cover up crap, and I've seen it. I have seen people in significant leadership positions, especially at the staff level, have things that would get a chief or a senior chief on a ship go down for. Go to freaking mass, lose their whole career, lose everything. And then when I would see it, and I was going to address it and take care of it like I'm supposed to, because I'm a master chief, I've seen people in positions of authority push me aside and cover it up and tell me, no CMC, nothing to see here. Because they didn't want the drama, or because they didn't believe in the policy, because they were, I mean, I don't want to say the word woke, but they were freaking woke, right? Let's just be honest. That's what it was. Thank God for what's happening now in the leadership, and they're finally getting rid of that crap. But my thing was this. I don't give a crap if we're on a staff or not. If a senior chief, if an E8 on an aircraft carrier breaks the fraternization policy and messes with an E6 on that carrier, guess what happens? They get held accountable. Well, what if the E8's in the squadron and they're embarked on board? They still get held accountable. What's even more crappy is, what if that E8 was ship's company and then went to the squadron that embarks 100% of the time and then still breaks the rules and is in a position of trust and has access to the senior most leaders, but is out there in the streets doing the dirt, but doesn't say anything to anybody until he gets caught by sailors, by junior sailors that are going to report it. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, now you want to come tell me that you found love and all these things. I don't care about that. I care that you're an E8 in the United States Navy. You know the policies, you know the rules, and you took the risk, and now you're caught. You should be held accountable, right? It's what would happen to you on any other ship in the Navy, but not when you have senior leaders in key positions that want to protect you and cover you. And when I saw that, that's when I knew. So you know what? Nope. It is. I am not a fan of this higher you go, the more protection you can get just because you've got friends in significant places. That's crap. That's crap, that's crap, that's crap. And I will tell you, as a Command Master Chief, you're going to have to deal with those people at some point. And unfortunately, way too many people in that senior leadership mess look the other way. Well, I didn't. I did not. I did not. But then that was also around the same time my wife had her cancer scare, and they used that cancer scare as a way to make my family transfer from Japan. Fortunately, I got blessed to go to Guam because Guam needed somebody, and I was more than happy to go, put my hand in the air. But my wife, the first time she cried, right? After the whole cancer scare, my mom dying on the same day they found the mass. The first time she cried, that I heard, was the day that the leader told me that I had to move my family to somewhere else. They didn't know where. And it didn't matter if she had cancer or not. That I still had to move. I remember calling up another Master Chief that was on that staff with me, and I said, "Hey man, at what point is it good for our Navy to be hopeful that a spouse has cancer? Because that's the only way this works out good for y'all. Because if my wife doesn't have cancer, there's no real reason for us to transfer anywhere else. None. Except for you guys are covering up the mess. You guys are covering up for the E8 that's doing the dirt." Right? So at what point does this make sense? Hey, Gary, you gotta just relax. I just flown back from burying my mom. I mean, the same day I came back from burying my mom, who died out of nowhere, and I flew home for 4 days to bury my mom while my wife's dealing with this whole cancer scare. So I fly from Japan to Utah, bury my mom, and I'm back to Japan. Right? 4 days gone. And he's like, "Gary, you're just going through a lot right now. Your mom just died. Your wife we don't know what's going on with Erica. I just hope it all works out. But I don't know." No, you know, bro. You were on the conversation. You're the one that also gave the go-ahead. But the reason for this is because, number one, you're covering up the crap. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm not with that. I don't believe E8s should be sleeping with E6s on board the ship. Period. Get them off the ship. I don't care. But when you're on that ship, there's rules and there's regulations. We're either going to follow them or we're not. Regardless of your freaking entitlement. Right? Regardless of your access to people. But number two, a person got announced to be the next incoming you, and that person doesn't like me. So, hey, let's just move this family around. Not to mention, my family had just moved on a short fuse notice to come to this job. I was handpicked off the ship, blah, 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 blah. Best guy for the job. But now all of a sudden, because I'm trying to hold standards, and this guy doesn't like me because I'll tell him what I think, because guess what? We're both Master Chiefs, that I can move. Okay, check. Roger that. Thank God my wife didn't have cancer. And thank God Naval Base Guam popped up. And thank God for Lisa Tisdale. And thank God for Jim Honey. And thank God for the people that were there for me. I would say Izzy, thank God for freaking Izzy, man. Thank God for Izzy. He was my detailer at the time. And I don't know what he knows about the whole situation, but it was a mess. And that was where I recognized as a Command Master Chief. You know, another thing I recognized was, you know, I've seen CMCs get put in positions where everyone will just completely abandon them. I would never abandon my sailor. And I've seen it happen to CMCs. Unless you told that. So that's when people ask me, would I go Command Master Chief again? Yes, because it was the best career decision I ever made. Was not always the best personal decision I ever made. That period of my life was really what broke me, right? When I recognized significant leaders and significant positions were just completely out of touch with the deck plates, and either A, the deck plates was wrong and nobody was going to fix it, or B, our leaders were completely freaking out to lunch and completely just oblivious to what was going on in the fleet. Because, I mean, the other master chief told me, well, Gary, I don't even think fraternization should be a problem anyway. Bro, the commanding officer of the ship has a policy. I don't care what you feel, what you think. There's a policy. And you're supposed to be the one advising, okay, bro, okay, guess what? And that's how the United States, I mean, this is a contributing factor as to how they're in the pickle they are in right now. You know, and I'll be honest with you, once I got my family settled in Guam, we literally flew back from Japan. My wife was still healing from the surgery, flew back to Japan. I got the whole household goods packed up. I even went back to the ship that I was supposed to be a crew of still on their books, still working from my cell phone for everybody. And they saw me, and this freaking leader said I couldn't be there because all the sailors loved me. And he didn't want me there because all the sailors loved me, and they knew about the drama that this dude did. Now, they did get the E8 off the ship a few months after me because they had to. The chief's mess was freaking furious. The chief's mess knows. They knew. And not just was the embarked chief's mess, but so was the afloat chief's mess. Everyone knew it was jacked up. And oh, by the way, he was a part of their mess first. Anyway, I just tell y'all, it's just one of those things, right? So in life, hindsight being 2020, would I still have gone into the mess? Or would I still have gone to the Command Mastery Program? Yes. But just understand that you may not have as much control over your career as you think you might. Oh, by the way, and look, I was worldwide assignable, no problem. No problem, right? I took the hard jobs, no problem. No problem. The only time I ever missed an underway day was with my wife's cancer scare. That was it. Otherwise, I've never missed an underway day. I was there for the job, right? I was there for the sailors, for the deck plates, to make sure we got it done. Until I got to the level where I saw behind the curtain, and it was muckety, muckety, muck. Ugh. Right? But, man, it looks like it's going to get better. I'm excited for y'all. The other thing about the commanding officers, you know, me and that CO, we always got along when I was in the room. I think that he had other people giving him advice behind closed doors, and they were just moving the pieces on the table and not thinking about there being families attached to that. And that's one of the problems I have with those higher levels. The other thing is, I will tell you, you will spend a lot of time dealing with everyone's problems. And that's a tough thing to do. You know, transferring out of the military, retiring, and becoming a member of like a high school teacher, so much more fun. So much more freaking fun. So much more fun. These kids are so inspirational. They're so motivated. They're so authentic. But you know the difference is? They don't have a bunch of freaking woke leaders trying to indoctrinate them into acting like they can just make an excuse for everything. These kids don't get a 1st and the 15th paycheck. They don't got full benefits. They don't got barracks rooms. They don't have some chief teaching them how to get freaking disability pay. I mean, I had kids claiming freaking traumatic stress just from going to the gun range. Come on, bro. Right? No, these kids are living in the world, and it's not easy for them, and they are freaking strong, and they are tough, and I am so grateful that the military's taken a curve where I actually want to start recommending to people to go serve again. Because I will tell you, my last 3-4 years, 4-5 years in the military, I was like, nope. If you cannot lead authentically on the deck plates because all a person has to do is make a freaking baseless accusation, and I'll tell you, I got stories for that too. All right, so just something that was on my heart today that I felt like sharing. I appreciate everybody that's tuning into my channel, that's watching. I love my Chiefs mess. I love my sailors, the ones that were getting it right. I love my Navy, man. I loved it. I love it still. As long as the people that are supposed to be leading are leading, and they're following the rules and the regulations, and they're not out there just freaking leveraging their politics or watching out for their buddies. That's that crap that I can't deal with that. That's not how it goes, right? Should have got out of the Navy. He should have got busted down to Chief and got freaking, there you go. He got busted down to Chief. Done. Now he's a Master Chief. All right, y'all. Thank you for listening to the sound of my voice. If you think this content is interesting, or if you enjoy the channel, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend. I'll tell you more stories in the future. I appreciate y'all. Master Chief or Gary is out.